This is a quick video to show you how to use tools built into the web browser to look at your HTML as well as the styles that you applied. So first we have our example HTML file with the H1s, H2, the paragraphs, the horizontal rule, and the elements up in the head like the title. We also have the styles, which are set background and alignment and size parts of each of these different elements. And this is the way that it appears in the browser when we load that file. Now, most modern web browsers provide tools that allow you to see how this information looks inside the browser. It's going to look quite a bit like the files that we created to make that page in the browser, but it will be a little bit different. So this is a good way to double check that the browser did what you were trying to accomplish when it loaded up your files. And the simplest way to do that is to pick an element. Let's say I'm interested in this H3. Right click, and then depending on the browser, you're going to see something that looks like inspect or inspect element. You click on that, and it's going to open up the web browser's debugging tools. There's typically two parts to this. Here in the Elements tab, there's lots of other tabs we're not going to talk about today. But in the Elements, we can see our H1s, our H2, the paragraphs, and the horizontal rule elements here, as well as if we put the body, compress the body, and we expand out the head, we can see those elements. And this looks just almost exactly like what we put in our HTML file. Okay, so that's great. Now, in addition to this, you probably see over in the browser, as I hover over these different things, in the browser, those things are being highlighted to show me what I'm hovering over here in the Elements view in the debugging tools. So you can see that this H3 is shown over on the right side. We can see there's the horizontal rule, etc. In addition to that, in these tools, if I click on one of these elements, I can see all the styles that were applied to that to make it look the way it does in the browser. And the information here is going to look a lot like what we put in the CSS file for our styles for the selected element. So if we go back there and look at the H3, we'll see that for the H3, we set that color to blue. And sure enough, when we look here on this H3, we can see that the color is set to blue. If I click on one of the H1s, you can see that it changed, and it's the color red, and that is what we set over here for the H1 to be red. So we can click through and look at the styles that are applied to each different kind of element here in our file. Now, you may have noticed that there are some styles that we didn't set. Here's the color that we set, but in addition, there are some other colors that we didn't set. Now, the color we set here, blue, comes from the style.css on line 14, and sure enough, that's exactly where our H3 information is in the style file that we created. But there's another block here for H3, and this is a user agent style sheet. These are things that the browser needs to set to make everything look good. And since we didn't supply any of these values, it went ahead and filled them in with some default values. So there's some margins, some blocking, a font size, the display type, those kind of things. So that's all set for us, and you can see that here. It's not evident when looking at our CSS file, our style file, but the browser did this for us. In addition, there's a couple styles that we didn't set that the browser still needs, and instead of using our H3, it went to the next level up in our HTML file and found an element that had some style. So you'll notice that inherited from body here on our H3 element is the background color and the text alignment. In our file, we didn't set those. We did set them here for the body. And if we look at our HTML file, here's our H3. And the H3 is a child element or underneath the body. So here's our entire body, and inside of that is an H1 child element, another H1 child element. There's our H3. So there are a couple of styles that the browser decided to set just to make the display look nice. And so since we didn't set those for H3 here, it went the next level up and said, okay, let's go look at the body. Does the body have any of those things? Well, sure enough, the body has background color and text alignment. So the browser went ahead and applied those two styles to our H3 element. And you'll notice if you look at the H1, those things were also inherited. The property, all of these things were inherited because they're important. That is to say that if we didn't have the background color here just on this H3 line, there would just be a big white band here and the yellow wouldn't fill in. So the browser is trying to help us out by smoothing out the background color and using the background color for the whole body here. So again, by right-clicking on any element, and let's pick a different element this time, by right-clicking on any element and selecting Inspect, you're going to be taken into the debugging tools and show you that particular element and then all the styling that was applied to it. Once you're in here, you can click on and look at other elements as well and see how they were styled. So this is a great way to double check what you did and see if the browser handled it correctly. If the browser is not handling your styles correctly, they're not appearing the way you expected them to, then you can come look in here and see what the browser decided to do, and that might help you figure out how you need to change your HTML file or maybe your CSS file to do what it is you're trying to do, most likely to do what is part of the assignment.